Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Rockets. Today I sit down with the owner and founder of Crunkleton, a local commercial real estate group whose passion is to redevelop old historic buildings and revitalize downtown Huntsville. First off, thank you for taking the time to sit down and talking with me. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yes, my name is Wesley Crunkleton, and moved to Huntsville about 16 years ago and helped start Crunkleton Commercial Real Estate Group. Been doing commercial real estate now for, almost 21 years.
Oh, wow.
And, over time, I didn't start off being really a developer of real estate, but, it started off when I was younger. That was my everyday job, managing properties, and then I went to leasing properties and then buying and selling properties, and the next thing you know, I'm developing properties. So a little bit of a transition there, but I'm originally grew up in Montgomery, Alabama. Went to a small school over in Georgia, then moved to Birmingham, worked there for 5 years in commercial real estate, and then got the opportunity to come up here. And family just absolutely loves Huntsville.
So, like you said, you're not originally from here. So I know that you said you went to school at Berry College and you got a degree in finance. Is what you were hoping to do with the degree in finance what you do now, or were you hoping to kind of do something differently with that finance degree when you were getting it at school?
Yeah, so I originally thought I'm going to be an investment banker and go the whole New York route and do that. And it was really, I think the summer between my junior and senior year, I just decided, I really don't want to go up to New York. Don't want to go up to the Northeast. I want to figure out something I can do. And commercial real estate was something I always had interest in. And so the spring of my senior year, as I kind of battled with what's next, as I think every college senior does, I went to Birmingham for the weekend, or actually the week, stayed with my aunt and uncle that live in Birmingham, grabbed what was then the actual Yellow Pages, the hard paperback book, and started making phone calls to commercial real estate companies. And I got 2 interviews out of probably 40 to 50 phone calls. At that point in time, you don't have commercial real estate or real estate. It was just real estate. And so I'd call a company, tell them what I wanted to do. No, we don't do that. Sorry, son. Next.
Nope. Okay.
Finally got talked to a gentleman that was very instrumental in leading me towards property management. He probably had a 30, 40-minute conversation with me on the phone, never met me before or anything, and said, he just simply said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'm going to do commercial real estate. He said, well, what about commercial real estate do you want to do? And I said, well, I'm really not sure. Leasing and buying and selling properties. He said, well, how many people do you know in Birmingham, Alabama? I said, well, I know my aunt and uncle. He said, you won't last 6 months.
Yeah.
He said, what you really need to get involved with is property management. I really didn't know what that was. Mm-hmm. And so he explained to me what property management was, and it was just the day-to-day management of these properties. They're like a business.
Yeah.
And so you're the CEO, the COO, and the CFO of a property. Mm-hmm. You help it, you set a budget for it every year. You make sure it operates every day and that the tenants have what they need. And I thought that sounded interesting, and he said, call these couple of companies and give them my name, and I think they're looking, and those end up being the companies that I got interviews with, and I got a job, and next thing you know, I'm off, and here we go. In June of 2001, I moved to Birmingham, Alabama, and started my commercial real estate career.
Wow. So in looking at your website, the website does a good job about kind of like showcasing some of the things that's kind of were instrumental in getting you here and kind of the process behind that. So you said in 2001, you're kind of starting in Birmingham, doing that property management stuff. And in 2005, you moved to Huntsville.
That's right.
What were you first doing in Huntsville when you came here, and what interested you the most about coming here?
Yeah, so my mother and father moved from Montgomery, Alabama to Huntsville. Actually, the exact same weekend, I moved from Berry College to Birmingham. And my dad dabbled in commercial real estate as well, and he did a lot of land sales. And he started that, doing that kind of in the late 90s in Montgomery, Alabama. And so I was up visiting with him at one point in time, and he had happened to understand that the Jones family, who owned the Target Supercenter out in Jones Valley, they were ending their contract with the current company that was doing the leasing and management of that facility. And he said, you really ought to think about putting in a proposal to take over the management of that property.
And you're like, this is a pretty big property, and I don't really, I've been in doing some of it, in Birmingham, but I'm not, I think with that area, I would have thought that it's just such a big area that someone like me that's only had a couple of years would definitely not get it. Did you think that, or did you think I could probably do it?
Yeah, so my first thought in mind was, oh yeah, I'll put in a proposal for the company that I work with right now. Not by myself,
Yeah, I'm just a guy that works for this company.
Yeah, I'm 26 years old. What do I know about, really starting from scratch and going from there, and it was my dad that really encouraged me. No, you shouldn't do it just for the company you're doing for. You ought to seriously consider about taking over and doing it. You got 5 years experience. You're a CPM, certified property manager, and he says, I really think you could handle this. And so I put in a proposal, and lo and behold, I got it. So I'm very thankful to the Jones family for that. And I think a lot of it was due to the proposed price that I put in as well.
You're like, I can't propose what these other people are doing because I don't have that experience, but I can do this and I'll be pretty good with that, I guess.
Yeah, well, you don't think about the cost of overhead and all these other things, rent for your office.
Did you quickly realize that it was too low of a thing, or did you just kind of think, okay, I think this is the experience I'm going to get doing this is going to be worth the little bit that I didn't really come to factor in?
Yeah, there are times going, whoo, I'm taking on a lot for what I'm making, but at the same point in time, you've jumped off the diving board.
Yeah.
You don't jump back out of the water onto the diving board. You're
just
in.
Keep swimming.
You're in. And it just so happens to be the time I was engaged to my current wife. And so a lot was going on in my life. I left my secure job where I was a senior property manager for a large company, managing a couple of million square feet of space with a nice trajectory in my career path, to all of a sudden I'm starting something new. Making a lot less money than I was making with the company I was working with. Mm-hmm. I'm getting engaged, or I'm getting married.
Yeah, it's like, okay, like this.
Moving cities, meeting all new people.
Yes.
The only people I knew in Huntsville were my mom and dad at the time. And so you're really starting over. So there was a lot going on at the time. But you just decide, you know what, this is the path that I've chosen to go down, and I'm going to make it work. And lo and behold, I was very fortunate that I just put my head down and started working, and slowly, I gained another contract. Mm-hmm. And I gained another contract. And I really focused on the property management side of the business for probably the first 3, 4, 5 years I was here in town.
Okay. And
then did a little bit of leasing with that as well. So from 2006 to 2010, 11, I was really just managing other people's property.
Okay. So did you, with that first property, kind of helping with the Joneses and doing the Target's super center area and then getting more and more, did you ever have the idea during that time that I should start my own business, or were you fine just kind of managing other, or how was that process working? And did the idea for Crunkleton come up during that time?
Yeah. So Crunkleton was around then. That's the business was property management at the time. So it was basically just leasing and property management. So it was just you
at that time?
That's right. It was myself, and then my dad was doing land sales. And that was it. I did my thing. He did his thing. We came in and, each paid for our individual offices downtown and just kind of came into work and do what we had to do. And then you just slowly start adding on to the services that you provide. Mm-hmm. And that's really what happened with me over time. I'm managing property, and now all of a sudden I'm helping lease the properties. Yeah. And then all of a sudden people were wanting help buying properties and then selling their property. And, you just start adding these services, and really the development side started when I was helping tenants try to lease properties, and we couldn't find a certain property that they wanted. And they said, well, we like this piece of property over here. There's no building. Just go build us one. Never had done that before. And, again, you always think yes first. Yeah, I can do it.
Of course.
Versus no, I can't. That's the way my mind works. So, of course, I spoke up quickly. Sure. Yeah. Well, let's go.
I'll say yes, and then I'll figure out later how to do it.
That's right. And luckily, I came out unscathed. I wouldn't say it was an extremely enjoyable process. Development is hard. Yeah. It's still hard. It's probably harder today than it's ever been in my career, but just because of supply chain issues with materials and contractors and lack of labor and everything else. But I still love it. I enjoy it. And I realized real quickly, I just love seeing something just take shape.
Yeah, seeing the process go from just being almost barren and nothing really there, or the building being there and the shell being there, to actually now people actually operating in that building. That's
right. No, it is fun. And it's still, going back and seeing those properties that were some of the first ones that I got involved with developing, it's good to see them still operating and alive today. And you go from building something in a field from ground up to all of a sudden you want to do adaptive reuse type stuff, which is really where my passion is today, and really seeing a property transform from going what it used to be, and then it's kind of gone downhill for a little bit, and then all of a sudden you jump in and give it a new life. Yeah, and that's really enjoyable for me.
So the first couple of years, it's just you and your dad doing this, and you're kind of operating in just a couple offices downtown, just kind of making do. You're able to pay your overhead. You're able to do all that. You don't really have employees. You're not, their well-being isn't based on what you're able to do. It's just yourself. when did the opportunity come to kind of hire that first employee? And was it kind of a big step for you? Because I feel like at some point, as a small business owner, you kind of, it's easy to kind of make sure you're able to get paid. But when you have other people that are, their paychecks rely on what you're able to do too, it's a tough thing. Like, how tough was that? And when did that happen during the process from that 2005 getting the first one?
Yeah, it is a tough process, and it probably weighs on me more every day than anything else, because now we have a team of folks. And so the number one thing I think about is, how can I help these people make a living, support their own families? And obviously that thought went through my mind. It was about, I want to say 2.5, 3 years into being here in Huntsville.
Okay.
I'd picked up another contract or two, and you start realizing real quick, oh my gosh, I'm kind of drowning a little bit. And the first person we picked up was more of an assistant / office manager type role to help us with administrative things, because managing a lot of these properties, I mean, you think about that Target Supercenter and all the tenants that it has, and that's a lot of administrative work.
Yeah, it's a lot of paperwork to keep up with.
It is.
And then you're also going out trying to get new ones. So then you're having even more paperwork on top of the paperwork you already had.
That's right. So I wasn't just managing, I was doing all the accounting for it as well. Wow. And everything else. So it was just a lot of work. And, after you work, 12-hour days, enough to, 5-6 days in a row at a time, you start to realize, like, maybe I could use someone.
I think I could probably hire one person.
That's right. So, you pick up that one person, and I think it was just three of us for another 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And then it was, now I have enough properties that I could probably hire a property manager.
Yeah.
And then as we started leasing more, we started bringing on folks that do the leasing and brokerage services. So we started doing a little bit more of that and adding a couple more people. We're still not a big team.
Yeah.
There's 12 folks that work in our office.
And I think anyone that's listening probably thinks when they see your signs of projects you're working on, or kind of that sort of thing, either on social media, that you're able to push that this is a new project. I think people think, I thought really before we first met, that there's a team of, 20, 30 people that were doing this, because there's always something going on. It feels like y'all are always in this corner, in that corner, in this, like if it was a boxing ring, y'all are in every single corner. There's always something that's going on with Crunkleton. So I was like, I imagine there's this huge team behind you. But to see, like, really, up until 2012, he probably only had 5 people.
Oh, that's right. And that's great to hear that you think we're just kind of all over and covering everything. That means our marketing team is doing their jobs. But no, we're an extremely busy group, an aggressive group. We like to take on projects and challenges, and we all absolutely love what we do. We come in early in the morning, we leave in the evenings, and everybody's ready to go the next day. And so we do cover a lot of ground. My name is very recognizable because it's an unusual last name. So you probably see, where's that? That's an unusual name again. But a lot of that is due to our team members. They're probably touching more of Huntsville than I am, as it relates to all the different stuff that's going on. And a lot of people think because they see our sign, they own that property too. We don't own really hardly any of the properties.
Okay.
Crunkleton Commercial Real Estate Group is a service company.
Okay.
It does not own any real estate. I myself do own some. My father owns some. There's a couple people in our office that have ownership in others. But I would say 75 to 80% of the properties that we work on, or you see our sign on, we're actually performing a service for someone else that's not part of our company.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of something that I didn't realize that either. I thought that it was kind of like, I was like, Crunkleton owns like all of downtown. Like their signs are everywhere, but really it's just, like I said, it's just a service you're able to create. When you first started this, did you in 2005 you first come to Huntsville and you're first kind of getting into this new city, this new place? It seemed like the success you had was right off the bat. I mean, it seems like once you got that first kind of push, you were able to then kind of see. Did it seem that way at the time, or do you think it was still very tough to kind of get the next project and the next project and the next project?
It's always tough, and that's incredible to hear that it seems seamless, like we just went on this growth curve and success curve, and that's truly not the way it goes. Every property management contract is very hard to get. Every leasing assignment is very hard to get. As you start to get more and more of a track record within your industry, people have a level of comfort with, they can perform. So it does help that we've been in this market for 16 years and worked on a lot of stuff and have been able to do a lot of things, because as you add to your resume, just like anybody that's going for a job application and put in their resume, when you can put certain things on your resume that show that,
like they've done this. Okay, well, I'm more likely to hire them for this.
That's right. And so, that's really what we've been able to do over the years is just build our resume. And that takes our whole team to do that. And so we've been fortunate to be a part of projects and that have allowed us to really kind of be in the face of a lot of the community projects like Stove House and Times Plaza and the Jones Valley, shopping center, Clinton Road, the garage at Clinton Road downtown, and things like that are very recognizable, to folks of Huntsville. And I think that's probably more when our name became more recognizable, was probably more in the last 3 to 4 years than before. And it probably seemed like all of a sudden, where did this company come from? They just came out of nowhere. Well, we've been here for 16 years.
Just now we're starting to get these locations that in these areas that are becoming these much highly trafficked areas. What is it like seeing these properties like the garage at Clinton Row and the Stove House and 106 Jefferson now, and seeing people enjoying them and you going out and enjoying them yourself? Like, what is it like to experience these projects that you worked so hard on to now see being enjoyed by hundreds and hundreds of people a day?
So there's two sides to that. One, love the fact that our tenants at these properties are successful. Seeing people just lined out the door out of Honest Coffee is fantastic feeling. And people shopping on the weekends up and down the garage, and going to Stove House and seeing 800 people in the food garden and things like that. That's the enjoyable side of it. The part that I just can't shake is the fact that whenever I'm at these properties, I'm constantly, my head's on a swivel, looking, oh my gosh, that's dirty over there, or we need to fix that, or we need to do. When you're in this business, you're constantly doing those things. You're seeing things that probably the person that's not involved in the industry is walking in and just walk right past it. We notice it. I notice it, and so it. While it's enjoyable at the same point in time, it's still just a constant work.
It's work. It seems like
it is.
So you kind of first get into it. I mean, you're doing commercial real estate. You're that's kind of what your bread and butter is. That's what you've kind of more experienced. Did you ever dabble in the residential stuff, in the residential side of stuff, doing like a apartment complex or any sort of buildings like that?
No, I actually use a residential real estate agent to buy and sell my own homes here in town. It's just two completely different worlds. We have not done any residential in the past. I've kind of told myself, especially when it comes to property management, if you lay your head there at night, I really don't want to have anything to do with it management wise. Our days are pretty busy from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. And the last thing I want to do is to put more burden on our team, where when everybody's coming home from their office and something's wrong with their apartment,
and they're having to go back out.
Yeah, they got to go back out and do something else. So, everybody needs a break.
Yes, for sure.
Yep.
So I feel like it's being a small business owner and kind of being in this for so long, it's very hard to separate the work and business. How do you try and separate every day you said is a busy day. I mean, you got here, you said it's every day is a busy day. You have things you kind of do and you're always doing, then you check. Okay, then everything else is just unknown. How do you kind of separate the work and business so that you kind of do have that release and that break from what the daily, the phone, the everything like that?
So eventually everything just blends together. And you just got to understand what your task at hand is and what it is that you're focusing on and doing. And sometimes you have to force yourself to do certain things too. I coach my kids' baseball kids pitch team. And I have a very busy day, and I see at the end of my schedule, 5 o'clock, got to be at the baseball field for practice. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to make that? But as soon as you get out there and pulling that into the parking lot, and your son jumps out of the truck and see all the kids on the field, your mind just completely goes away
time to play baseball.
Yeah, it's time to play baseball. And it's actually a great relief just to get out there and focus on, making sure they're swinging the right way and fielding a ground ball the right way and doing those sort of things. So, it's just a blend of things, and everybody has a different way of approaching it. Mine just happens to be whatever it is I'm doing right there at the moment. I'm going to focus on that at the moment, and then we're going to move to the next thing.
So I know that Crunkleton doesn't just do downtown Huntsville. I think it's one of the kind of like the misconceptions about Crunkleton is that you just do downtown Huntsville. Like downtown Huntsville is Crunkleton. Besides that, like you're not anywhere else. But there's a lot of properties that you own and you are not own that you operate in your property management in other locations. Why is the focus of what you do downtown, and why is downtown so important to you in Crunkleton itself?
Yeah, so most of the stuff that you see actively that's going on downtown does probably have something to do with me personally, but not our team.
Okay.
Our team covers a lot of area. We're licensed in Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee, and have done work in all 3 states. But I personally like to focus on downtown. just because I just love these historic buildings and adaptive reuse projects, being able to take a 40-year-old parking garage that had chain link fence up front and turn it into a place that people like to gather and shop and spend time. That's a cool feeling, and taking some of these old buildings that may have not been touched for 30 or 40 years, and you can tell, man, that their lifespan is going to deteriorate quickly unless someone jumps in there and kind of gives it a new life. The Jimmy John's building on the corner that we did a couple of years ago, 104 Jefferson, which is right next to the hotel that we ended up building. Those are projects that, while they may be small and most people probably don't even realize the change that they went through, those are some of my more fun projects that I love. I just really enjoy our downtown. And you start thinking about, I love Huntsville first and foremost. And when you start thinking about other cities and cities that you've gone to and visited, you immediately go to, what was their downtown experience like? Yeah. You don't think about, oh, their suburbs were fantastic in Cincinnati or wherever it is. Yeah. And, I felt like downtown just needed a shot in the arm a little bit with some of the things. And, I traveled a good bit and seen things that other cities have done. And I try to grab what I think would work in Huntsville and bring it back and introduce it to our city. So far, so a lot of those things have worked. Going and seeing architecture in cities like New York, and then going to Cincinnati or Louisville and seeing some of their central business districts and how they've done things. And it's interesting. And then you start realizing, well, I think Huntsville could do that.
There's
too.
some pretty cool buildings here that just need a little bit of TLC.
That's right.
And we're able to kind of do that. And sometimes the little bit of TLC becomes a lot of TLC at the end once you start getting into the project. But just being able to see those projects like that come together. One thing that you mentioned when we met a couple weeks ago was just kind of the role you played in 106 Jefferson and kind of when those final days of the project kind of came along. And you mentioned a little bit about like seeing other like hotels in New York and kind of bringing that back. Can you talk a little bit about that process and kind of what those final days of 106 Jefferson looked like before you opened, and what you and your wife were actually kind of firsthand doing to kind of make sure that thing was able to open? Yeah.
So we do get very hands-on in all of our projects. So you might see me cleaning up a floor or picking stuff up or doing whatever. The day before it opened, or 2 days before it opened, we're up there planting all the plants on top of the rooftop bar, my wife and I. That's something we actually enjoy doing too. Yeah. But, we knew that a lot of folks were busy doing other things that were a lot more technical and skilled involved than planting.
And you're like, I can plant.
So we can plant. So you visit cities like New York and you see these beautiful buildings and you see hotels and the way they operate and these, beautiful lobbies and restaurants that are attached to them. And you're like, man, that would be fantastic if we had one of these in our downtown. And I was doing redeveloping 104 Jefferson, which was right next door. And I had heard that the old Hill Brother buildings, which if you remember, they were just boarded up. All the windows were boarded up, chain link fence in front of it. And really had been that way since I had been in town, 2006. Yeah. So you're talking about quite a substantial amount of time those buildings were just boarded up. And I had heard that someone was going to build a hotel there. And I thought, man, what a great idea. Yeah, perfect. That sounds fantastic. And then I heard within a month later, it fell out of contract. And I thought, well, I still think it's a good idea. And no, I don't know anything about hotels, but I'm going to go talk to the owner of the building and see if he'll let me do the project. And he said, Wesley, you develop great things. I have a lot of confidence in your ability to develop something, but you've never done a hotel. How are you going to do a hotel? And, fast forward a little bit, he gave me 6 months to go find a hotel partner. And my contractor, Robbins and Morton, had connected me with a hotel family out of Memphis that had done a lot of hotels. I invited them to Huntsville, Alabama. That was a very hard invite because they, like a lot of other people, said, look, we love Huntsville, but it's just not ready for a product like that. Yeah. That's a little high end for Huntsville. And I just said, well, if you don't mind, I'll pay you for your time to come to Huntsville. I've got 6 months to figure this out. I'd love to just pick your brain and just learn from you. For sure. What you see and don't see about our market.
If this hotel doesn't work, well, I would like to start a hotel eventually, maybe. Yeah. But at least I'll be able to learn from you.
Yeah, I'm constantly, you're trying to learn every day. And hotel business was new for me, so I don't know what metrics they're looking at or why a hotel that I think would do great in Huntsville couldn't work. Yeah. And so he and his executive vice president of their company came into town, and before they left that day, they said, this isn't the same Huntsville we remember. I think it is ready. And you ought to call my son, who now runs our hospitality arm of our company, and talk to him. And y'all need to try to get this project started. And I knew I wanted kind of an upper tier at the time. It was not a Hilton or a Curio. It was just, this is the type of product hotel we wanted. And then once I started speaking with the son, and that's when we kind of picked, we're going to go either Curio or Autograph Way. And even that wasn't easy.
Yeah.
Because even Hilton and Marriott were both kind of like, I don't think Huntsville's quite ready for that. And had to do the same song and dance, pull them back into town, have them see our city, and then say, you know what?
I think you might be ready.
They might be ready. And so I've been that was very fortunate, just the right timing. Mm-hmm. I think 5 years ago, there's no chance that we get that. But just being able to bring on the right partner and right timing, and Huntsville on the right growth trajectory, it really allowed us to do that. Our company does not manage the hotel. That's one thing we understand and realize real quickly. We'll develop it, but we don't do that.
Hotels aren't our thing. So
we have a really top-notch management company that managed it for us, and very happy that they're here with us. And so far, it's been almost 3 months now since our doors first opened to the public, and we're starting to receive more and more traffic. And it's tough right now. I think everybody understands the labor woes that are out there right now, especially in the hospitality industry. And everybody is facing those. Restaurants, if you have anything to do with hospitality, you've got a labor shortage one way, shape, or form. And that's probably our biggest day-to-day struggle, is just trying to manage the labor and making sure that we have enough folks there to give the experience that people expect when they walk through the doors of the hotel. So
kind of talking about kind of just getting the people in the right places and being able to find these investors to help you with these projects that you kind of envisioned. When you first started and you kind of had these ideas, did you ever kind of bring a project to somebody or to a bank into this, them being like, hey, that's not ready for Huntsville and we can't really invest in that? But then now kind of fast forward 10, 15 years since you started, those projects actually get done that they wouldn't actually, how often does that happen? Did that happen often in the first couple of years?
It still happens.
Oh, wow.
We're sitting here in Lincoln Mill, which is the property that, we developed. But, as I started to go around and talk to potential investors about that, and, we're just talking, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and they're, no. Yeah. And a lot of it has to do also with, I call it the Huntsville blinder. Mm-hmm. People that have lived in Huntsville for so long, they've got this connotation about this area of town or this project or this building. And you start talking to folks about, well, this is what I see. And this is what I envision. Well, maybe so, but man, that property, I don't know about that property.
You haven't been here this whole, you only been here for 16 years. You haven't been here, 55 years and 60 years to see it.
Oh, that's right. And you don't come up this far north on Meridian Street and do a project.
You always turn around at this point. You don't go up to this next intersection and all that stuff like that.
That's right. And so, I still get told no all the time, and by banks as well. Wow. We're just not interested in that project. It happened quite a few times on the hotel project, on Lincoln Mill as well. And you do start growing relationships with certain banks that trust in what it is that you're doing. And understanding what it is that you're doing. People don't realize banks are supposed to be on your team. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to be part of the team process of doing one of these projects. They're not the person on the other side of the table that you're fighting against all the time. And so you really want to make sure you're picking a good team member there. Same with the investors as well. Yeah. You want people that really believe in the project itself. And that was true with 106 Jefferson. It's true with Lincoln Mill. Mm-hmm. You get people that are like, wow, I love to see this in Huntsville. This is great. And these are folks that have lived in Huntsville a long period of time too, that I would think have the Huntsville blinders on, but no, they're like, hey, this is a fantastic project for our community. What needs
to happen.
That's right. And so it's good to have folks like that on your team that really understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
So not only do you have kind of investors when you look for like a redevelopment project like this, and you kind of find investors in the local area that are interested in kind of this projects, but you yourself are often approached too as investing in other projects that are happening, and you often get your hand into this and into that. How tough is it to kind of filter through what you want to invest in? And has there ever been a thing that you've been wanting to invest in and you didn't, that you regretted?
Good question. So I guess the first part of that, yes, we do invest in other things, or I invest in other things that we don't necessarily manage or do real estate wise. And a lot of that has to do with food and beverage in and around town. And a lot of it really just goes to, it'd be great to have that in Huntsville. The impact of that will be fantastic. a lot of people don't understand the story of Honest Coffee. One of our leasing agents was very successful in bringing them from Franklin, Tennessee to Huntsville to visit our city. And they love the project. They love our city. And before they left, they said, look, this is a go. We like this. This is great. But if you like it so much, you put your money into it too.
Oh, wow.
And so, for the first 2 years, I was one of the owners of Honest Coffee because the only way to get them here was they said, put your money where your mouth is. After 2 years and it really took off, they said, we don't need you anymore.
Okay, bye.
and so, which was great. At the end of the day, my whole purpose wasn't to have them to own the coffee shop. I just wanted I wanted a coffee shop right there because I just thought it made sense. And that's happened before with other restaurants and stuff around town, and I still have ownership in those. I don't manage them on the day-to-day. A lot of people don't know that I have any ownership in them. It really just comes down to the fact that I was approached and people, wanted my input and thoughts and on the idea and the concept. I liked it and supported it enough that I put a financial, put some money into it. And the last part of your question, anything that I should have invested in and didn't, I can't think of anything right off the bat right now, because a lot of things I've thrown some money around at different things.
Is it tough to kind of get your wife to say like, hey, like I think this is a good idea and I want to throw some, and I don't know. You've already invested in 3 this week, and like is it tough, or is it easy kind of like eventually she's like, okay, well, like these other things have worked out, like okay, go ahead for it.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We could talk for hours about my wife and the support she was giving me and the company and the trajectory. She has been phenomenal. And just like anything, my wife's probably the first person that I talk to about any idea.
Okay.
We sit down and we talk on a daily basis in the evenings once the kids are down or whatever that is. And we sit there and we chat for an hour, 2 hours, usually just about every day. I'd say 5-6 days a week. About everything that's going on in her life and her store. For those that don't know, she does own and operate Roosevelt & Co., the men's store at the garage at Clinton Row. And she was believe it or not, she was in the medical field before that.
Wow.
Yeah. So she spent 10 years with Huntsville Hospital. And before she left that, she was director of strategic planning for them. And so she's kind of morphed her own career as well. And I have a lot of confidence in her ability to pick things out that are good or bad and what makes sense and what doesn't. She's very smart. And so, there's times I'll come home and say, hey, look, so I think we got our coffee shop, but we got to own it too, part of it. And so, and she looks at it and says, well, we believe in it.
Yeah, and so it does kind of make sense.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And she's good at reading numbers and stuff also. So we'll sit down and look at it. Yep, this makes sense. It may not be a home run, but it's a great impact. It's what we wanted in the community. It's what we want in the development. Let's do this. And so, she's a good sounding board for us.
Do you think that having that person that's not in it on the day-to-day operations, it's not in on like I said, she's in it because you're in it, but she's not necessarily in it and like in the office and doing that. Do you think having that outside perspective is what helps either ground you or center you with what your decisions and what you do on a day-to-day operation?
Yeah, I think whether would be in our office on a day-to-day basis or not in our office on a day-to-day basis, she always keeps me pretty grounded. And she takes a very just simplistic approach to things and looking at things. And all right, first of all, does that concept even make sense? Okay, it does. And then what do the numbers look like from there? What's the end game in this? And you got to look at just about everything that you look at. You don't just look at the entry. You got to look at the exit as well. You got to look at what it is, who's going to operate it, what we're trying to accomplish. There's just so many different aspects. Every building's that way. We approach every development in every building as if it's its own business. And, Lincoln Mill is not tied to 106 Jefferson. Yeah. They're operated completely differently in different styles and have different budgets. So everything is every property that we manage or we're a part of, we manage it like it's its own business, and we have to approach everything that way.
So take me back to like 2005 when you first kind of start Crunkleton. It's just you and your dad. At that time, what interested you the most about being your own boss and owning your own business?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
It was just the opportunity to come to Huntsville. I had never thought about being my own boss or starting my own company. Again, I'd 5 years gotten to a level of comfort, seemed to finally be getting in the right trajectory. I think every 22, 23, 24-year-old that's working for a company is always like, man, when is it going to be my time to grow and do something? Yeah. And so that was 20 years ago for me, but I still remember those times, those daily struggles of, I really wish I had more responsibility and I could do more. And so I really understand that. And I was finally at that stage where I was starting to get on that up curve. So
it kind of made sense at that time.
It did. And so I never intended to leave the company I was with. It just so happens my life got crossed up with an opportunity that I thought was a good opportunity, and I took it. Yeah. And it just went. And once I make a decision to do something, those that know me know there's no turning back. I go diving headfirst into it. There was probably a lot of times in the early stages of the hotel, because that was such a hard project, that it would have been easy to just say, you know what, too hard, I'm out.
Yeah, I can't do this anymore.
I can't do this. But I'm just a really stubborn person, is the way my wife explains it, and I am. I don't like to fail. And I really want something to succeed. I especially if I really believe in the project and I really want to see the impact that it will have on our community and our business and everything else. It's hard for me to just stop and throw it all down.
So you mentioned a lot about the opportunities that you've been able to have over these 16 years, from moving to Huntsville to kind of the opportunities you were having in Birmingham. Do you think a lot of your success thus far, would you contribute to being in the right place at the right time, or do you contribute to your hard work?
Both. I think it is right place at right time. It's kind of like how a lot of people explain the hole-in-one with golfers. How it's just a chance of luck. Yeah. But if you're pretty good at golf, your chances of that luck happening are much greater. I do commercial real estate day in and day out. It's what I eat, sleep, breathe. This is what I do. So I have an understanding of commercial real estate that folks that may just be an engineer, and, building rockets may not understand. Those people are a lot smarter than me, those people building rockets, but they don't practice commercial real estate on a day-to-day basis. And so I do think a lot of our success is being at the right place at the right time, but it's also understanding what to do with it and how to take that project and move it forward.
One question that I think is kind of an interesting question, I don't think I've even actually asked this before to anybody, but a lot of the work that you do, I would almost consider it very visionary, in the sense that you've been able to see something that not too many people have been able to see on a space. Do you think you've always kind of had that eye for something? Or do you think that eye for something has kind of been developed over the last 16 years?
That's a great question. And man, I appreciate you calling me a visionary in commercial real estate. That's very kind of you. I don't think of myself as a visionary. I mean, the way I look at it is kind of the same way you probably see a designer walk into someone's space and they see a blank canvas, and next thing you know, it turns into this beautiful thing. And you're like, wow, how did they do that? That's amazing. When I look at a project or I see a project, it's hard for me to look across the table and say, wait, you don't see that? Yeah. You can't see the same thing that I'm seeing? And it's amazing when I sit down with a lot of bankers and folks are like, nope.
Can't see it.
Can't see it. But you start to create this vision, and then the biggest part of any sort of vision and bringing it to life is putting the right team together. I'd love to sit here and say, yep, I did this and I did that. No, that's not the case at all. You go find the right architect that you think it can match up with that vision of what you really want, the right design team, the right contractor. And you really have to make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page on what you want to accomplish. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult.
So looking at like all the projects that you have in town and in Huntsville and other cities, and particularly in downtown, what does a day in the life look like for what you do? I mean, I would think that you're never really in the office. You're always at these different projects, especially with a lot of these projects kind of coming to fruition in the last couple of months. What does that day in the life look like for you?
All right, I'm really going to cause your listeners to go to sleep now, but I spend about 8 hours of my day in the office, either on the phone or on emails.
Okay.
And it really just depends, honestly, on where we are in certain stages of a project. At the tail end of the hotel, I'm walking that hotel twice a day, three times a day, just trying to make sure things are getting done the right way. And there's so many different moving parts. So there's going to be some days where I'm out of the office most of the day because we're on a certain part of a project that requires my time and attention there more often than not. But I would say the majority of the days I'm sitting on the phone, or I'm on my email, or I'm, got my pencil, paper, and calculator out in front of me because, again, I'm a finance major.
Yeah, so you're always checking the numbers.
I'm checking numbers and running numbers. Does this project work? Because as we're working on projects, I've also got to understand and realize there's an end date to those projects. Yeah. So what's next? What's after that?
Yeah.
So I'm constantly looking at, what could be next, and running those numbers too, and just kind of doing the front end due diligence of those projects also.
Okay. So with the end of the 106 Jefferson kind of coming to the end in the last couple months, is that next transition for you? Is it the Lincoln Mill that we're sitting in right now? Is that kind of the next big project that you're on in the redevelopment and the and revitalization of downtown?
Yeah, so Lincoln Mill kind of ran in a tandem with 106 Jefferson. 106 Jefferson lasted way too long of a construction project, and Lincoln Mill's starting to get to that. It's been way too long, but both of them are. I'm hoping we're on the tail end of it.
Okay,
106 Jefferson's is open. We're working on punch lists with our contractors, so that does take a lot of time and energy and effort to make sure all I's are dotted and T's are crossed before we just say, all right, you're out.
Yeah.
And same thing with Lincoln Mill. We're trying to get. We're on the tail end of this project as well. I'm very hopeful by the end of this year. We're down to just tenants building out their spaces out in front in the dye house. But other than that, this project's done too. So I'm already on kind of I would say at the mid strokes of future projects that we're looking at and working on. And, there's 4 or 5 of them that I've kind of dipped my toe in the water, and I won't take on all of those, but there are some of them, some that we've already committed to say that we're going to try to work on and do, and others we're still seeing if it's going to work out.
And then I think I've been in this space since I moved in June, and the first couple of months from June to maybe August, it was a lot of jackhammering. We're doing a lot of work in this part of not a problem. We were doing a lot of work in this building. And so it was a lot of construction going on, but as the months have gone on, I think there's been a lot less in this building, which has become, it's made this more of like an office space. And that's really what it is. I mean, they have if anyone that hasn't been to this, Lincoln Mill yet, I would drive by if you haven't been by in a while. It's a completely different building than what it has been. I mean, there's places like Iron Tribe in here now, tons of offices, physical therapy. I mean, there's so much in this space that I think for a lot of people just kind of driving by on 565 or on 72 or whatever would just forget that it's even here. I mean, now there's the sign you can see on 72 that says Lincoln, that actually kind of that is where that's that.
Yeah. Sorry for the jackhammering, but you're right. It was very loud here. Redeveloping properties, especially a building like this, sound really travels in this property. But again, it was kind of timing was the right thing.
Yeah.
There was a lot of negative with COVID, but I guess the one positive is not a ton of people were in their offices while we were trying to build out the space and the buildings. So while it was an inconvenience for some, at least it wasn't an inconvenience for an entire building full of people.
Definitely.
During the time. So that occurred. But the thing about Lincoln that interests me was the history behind it. But the thing that I always just was like, I can't believe this, is just it became almost an afterthought, or just not even a thought of property in Huntsville anymore. And I'm like, my gosh, we have this, what I consider one of the most beautiful industrial buildings in the Southeast with Lincoln Mill. And a lot of people don't even know what it is that live in this community, or never seen it, never been in it. And so part of my challenge was I want to make this thing a campus that people that have never been here or don't know anything about it want to come check it out.
Yeah.
And it's, look, I get it. There's a lot of the public does not want to just come into an office building and walk around in somebody else's office building. I mean, there's nothing really fun about that. Yeah. But that's the reason why we're doing the dye house and bringing in restaurants and more fitness and places to shop as well, and some entertainment. We want the public to come and enjoy the campus. While you may not want to come and walk through the large office building in the back, because that's what it is, office buildings. Hey, anybody that wants to, I mean, the doors are unlocked and open at 8 a.m. in the morning and locked down at 5. Come walk through the hallways. Yeah. Come see what the property's about. But we do want people to come out here and know what Lincoln Mill is and experience it and see it and understand, this just growing corridor between downtown and, Alabama A&M, just this, what they call it, kind of the educational corridor. Yeah. With Drake State on there as well. We're right next door to Lincoln Village. But what folks like Brooks and Collier and Preservation Company and Mad Malts, what they've been here, for a while.
It's like just connecting them with what is already, what you all have been able to do and what already is happening in downtown, making that connection between the two.
That's right. It makes sense. The city spent a lot of money years ago widening Meridian Street and putting lanterns on it and sidewalks. And now we got, a bike path that leads, from downtown all the way to Lincoln Mill. And we even actually have our bike share program that's being set up out front. So, there's a lot about Lincoln Mill that just makes sense, but we do want the public to come out here and enjoy it. And that's the reason why we put the sign on top of the building as well from 565 is we want people coming in from the east to look over there and be like,
what's going on?
What's Lincoln?
Yeah.
And
I think that's like, we're talking about just like the history that's involved. I mean, like the building that we're in now and what was primarily office was, Brown Engineering started in the basement, and then it came into being a lot of NASA stuff. And then I even recently kind of was talking to somebody about the dye house. And he was even saying that in the early years of Straight to Ale, they were actually operating out of the dye house.
That's right.
Before they moved to their locations. There are a couple of locations previously before they're actually now in Campus 805. So I think like the history is remarkable, and being able to preserve that history in a space that is hundreds of years old is incredible. But also being able to operate these new and technology-based companies and fitnesses and all this stuff in a space that is so old. I bet it comes with a lot of trouble. At the same time is also, it's the fine line between be really, really cool to do this, but also like, wow, this is going to be really tough to kind of make this into a up to the standards that is today.
Yeah, it is. It's a different type building, and, it was built for industrial use to begin with, and now we're changing the lifestyle of the building. But going back to what you're saying about all the history and the companies that have been here, it's amazing when I talk to someone that knows that we're redeveloping Lincoln Mill, and they're like, yeah, I remember when working in that building 30 years ago for this company or that company. There's a lot more that's just happened in this building than even I realized as far as it relates to companies growing here in Huntsville. A lot of them at some point in time either started in Lincoln Mill or they were here at some point in time, and pretty substantial companies too. So that part's really cool to hear and understand. But yeah, a building of this age, anytime you're working with a building that's, 100 years old plus, you're going to have the aches and moans and groans of the building. And, we're trying to at least patch it and make it as up to date as we possibly can. And there's certain things that you can and can't do. I mean, if anybody has seen this facility, you've noticed that it just has a gazillion windows. And these are beautiful steel case windows with the individual panes. Well, that's a lot of caulking and a lot of, it's going to take us years to find every window leak that's out there. I think we've knocked out about 97% of them, but we're still working on those. And the good news is a lot of the tenants that are here have been here, and they understand how much of a gain they've gotten from the window leaks and the HVAC. We had to bring in a whole new cooling tower because the one that was here could only actually service half the building. Yeah. And so it got really hot during the summers. And so, we're trying to, things like that we're trying to fix, but it just takes time. And especially with supply chain issues today. I mean, you don't just go down the street and buy a cooling tower.
Yeah. It doesn't happen like that.
You gotta wait your turn.
So looking at anyone that's listening that's wanting to connect with Crunkleton and kind of keep up with some of the projects that you're doing, and even all sorts of different stuff that Crunkleton is doing, how can people connect with you and support you in what you're doing?
Well, I appreciate that. And my marketing director is going to say, how can you not know every single outlet that we have? And I don't. Start with our website, crunkletonassociates.com. You can get on there, and then you can log on and you can follow our newsletter. We do a blog as well. Haley Clemens does a fantastic job as our director of marketing, and you get to learn about hear about new restaurants and new businesses that are open and coming into town. We're really big on supporting those businesses that are coming here, so most of our blogs are about what's coming and what's opening. And so follow that, and that'll help out as well. But yeah, check out our website. Website should have all the different ways you can follow us. I think we have a Facebook page, an Instagram page. I'm not sure on all that because I just don't do social media and I'm not good at it. But we do have all that, and I think you can follow all those different outlets.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sitting down talking with me. I love learning more about your story and the story of Crunkleton, and I continue to look forward to the success that Crunkleton will have in downtown Huntsville and all the different cities and all the different states for years to come.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.